You guys ready for some extra content? What we're going to do, I'm going to go over every patch in Exer. Let me tell you guys right now, a lot of people really have high hopes for Season 2. From that alone, I can tell they've not played in Guilty Gear Balancing. And what was notable about this game, like what was the problems, like who was top tier, whatever. And then we're gonna talk about what they did to change it, right? This is basically the first patch. They added Sin, Alpha, and Leo. So at this point, Sol was a top 5 character. He was actually considered like 5th. Probably like Sol was 5th or like 4th. Zato, Milia were like 1 or 2. Probably 1 and 2 actually. I think Faust was broken at this point. Potemkin was terrible as well. So when they added Elphelt, she was broken. Elphelt was broken. She was so fucking broken. In fact, this version doesn't even give... You may notice that it does not include patch notes for her, and that's because she got included in this, but she actually got nerfed on console. Pineberry, you could not kick it away. Oh, here we go. Doesn't disappear on block or hit, forcing your opponent to respect it and try to get around it once tossed. Doesn't disappear on hit or block. Now, I'm going to emphasize something to you. This move is +7, right? If it explodes, it is +7. She gains Halometer. Bridle is also +10, Air Bridle. It is pretty much the only dive kick I know of that has under 5 frames landing recovery in Guilty Gear. So basically this is just like the sniper. So she snipes you, she does a lot of damage. You could unblockable loot people over and over again, and there was no way to escape. And then here comes Shotgun. In fact, I have a little gift for you guys. Remember, I've mentioned a lot that like my tolerance for bullshit in fighting games is very high, extremely high. It's purely because of this. When people say like, you know, Solfar S is the most broken shit they've ever experienced, this is what flashed into my mind. Rue made an anti-shotgun stance dive. This is just for stance, by the way. Every interaction here, you have to understand. If you do not understand a single one, you cannot beat her, period. Otherwise, you are guessing and you're just gonna die. This is purely from May's perspective. She has been nerfed incredibly, tons of times since then. And Shotgun's still broken. One of the big ones is this. This is a 3-frame normal that anti-airs. It is +1. Now, +1 is a problem because that means you cannot punish it because it has a unique pushback mechanic with it, as you can see. Not only because of that, she has shot. Regular shot is basically a 3-frame shot, or she can hold it and it becomes a 1-frame shot. 1-frame shot is +5, -2 on regular shot, but on regular shot, it's only 3 frames. Just to emphasize to you how juiced this move is, Sol's 5k existed, and remember, he was top 5, and they still highlight that her Shotgun S, this shit is the best 3-frame normal in the game. That should really that should really make you think. All her normals had no hurt boxes. Her close slash is one of the best anti-airs in the game, right? Like, it's 5 frames, it gives her a combo on trade. The downside of it is that it's like proximity based, right? So like all the Alphelt players be like, oh, you just bait the close slash, or like some shit like that. Like they just be like, you gotta move in a way to make it so that I don't get close slash when I want it. But then what would happen is they just hit you with this instead, because again, it didn't have a hurt box. A lot of people know Ramlethal for being very broken, which she was, but probably realistically, Alphelt was better, like probably even a tier above, honestly. So her old swords, she would press 6S or 6H, or 2S or 2H, and it would set a sword right beside you, right? Like here. So this would give her a combo, or it would make you block and she would basically get to either set play you or go ham on you. Her thing was that she has like some of the best set play in the game, but basically it was like dependent on swords, and her weakness was that she actually doesn't build much meter without swords, but on sword normal she gained a shit ton of meter, like stride meter gain. What made this broken was essentially she could hit the swords or hit her, and the sword would stop attacking, but you could never make these go away, right? So that means she could always just summon sword randomly, and it was really fast. Imagine getting hit by Fire Slash from anywhere on the screen. After 1.1, Ram was dead. She never made it back. 1.1 made it so you could hit the you could hit these, the summons, and then they would drop to the floor, and then she couldn't use it for a while. Like, the power level also like spiked tremendously with the DLC character. Now let's talk about this fucker. I almost called him a hero from how I'm like about to start talking about him like he's a League of Legends character. This motherfucker is broken in 1.0. He is nasty as hell. He had one of the best 6Ps in the game, but what made this 6P like especially nasty is that it was special and jump cancelable. But what made him cursed was his calorie mechanic mostly, but he did have god normals as well. If he does not have any calories, he gets hungry. But what made this one specifically cursed is that he could YRC eat to get his food back, which means it was a lot less risky to bank on like going into low calories. Basically, think of Sin, how he works as Nago. Each time he cancels, like he can cancel special moves into each other, but it costs calories. If he runs out of calories, then he's punishable for about 100 frames. Alcun, it's like a full screen slide. In fact, this is kind of like prototype Beyblade, if you want to think about it like that. Slides him full screen, it's +2. So that means even if you IB it, you will not get a punish. If you IB'd at like the perfect like timing, he could just cancel into this and then you're dead. Imagine if Nago could do like an actual DP after every Beyblade. Imagine that. Imagine every RPS interaction with Nago, but he DPs after. Those are like the god characters, right? Zato was also very broken at this time, but Zato, believe it or not, is almost always broken in older Guilty Gears. Almost every version, he's like godlike. All you need is this shit. This is like old Frog. If you got counter hit by this twice, you'd probably get stunned, right? And as well as Soul. So Soul was like around 5th at this time. What made him very, very powerful, he did strive damage, which he's always done strive damage. But Fafnir was level 4, which meant that if you blocked this, and even if you instant blocked it, you could not punish it, because it would lead to, it would be 0, right? Except he's got a 3-frame 5k. It's strive damage, they've always had it. That's the talking point. Like, the thing with Soul is, like, he's always considered very good early, and then as time goes on, he always falls off. Always. There's no exceptions. Like, I don't think there's a single version where he's, like, considered 1, and, like, by the end of, like, the year, he's, like, still considered 1. Most of them were, like, half finished. The other half were extremely broken, which may sound familiar to you. So with all this in mind, let's talk about what they did for this. They nerfed Fafnir, which, like, for a 5th character, like around like 5 to 6, that's pretty fair. Kai, I think, was like mid-tier. He gradually gets better through rep. Milia, they basically did nothing to her. Even though, again, she's like top 5. That's fuck. Zato, they do literally nothing to Zato. Again, he's like top 5 as fuck. In fact, I think he's like 2nd or 3rd at this point. Potemkin, he gets literally nothing despite being considered the worst character, undisputed for about a year at this point. Faust, they buffed Faust. I don't know why. I still don't know why. I don't like it. This is when they started to kind of like buff her again. See, like relating to how like the swords interact, but this is still not a good enough change. This is like a big Sin nerf. This is when I think Sin started to get, like, this is when he went from like top 3 to like he started to fall off a bit. So if you went into hunger animation, you could PRC it. Imagine Nago runs offense to you, he pops, and then he does purple RC and he just runs offense to you more. That's basically what this was. This is when they start to really nerf Alpha. In fact, you can see by all the changes in the last patch, they made it so you could knock it away, but it was basically impossible to do it consistently. They had to change this, and this is when she was like became a little more manageable. But as you can see, she had no hurt boxes. Oh yeah, at this point, Johnny was top 1, because this is after they released Rev 1. So Rev 1 Johnny, I've talked about this before, but he was basically in the same category. 4 guts, which in Exert is fucking huge. He used to get about, I think, 25% around there for dashing forward. 4S had no hurt box, that was good. 2S had no hurt box, that was good. 5H had no hurt box, that was good. 2H had no hurt box, that was good. 6H had no hurt box, that was good. And then this. So I'm pretty certain that's a lot of fucking meter. I'm pretty certain imagine that's like, that must be around like 30%, right? Like 30% meter off just using level 3 alone. Basically, disgustingly high. Jacko in release was considered very good, but it wasn't because of ghosts. It was because of how good her normals were. This is kind of the problem with characters like Jacko. In older games, when they made characters like Jacko where they had a very powerful function like huts, it meant that either their function was really powerful and needed to be nerfed, or their normals were too broken and they didn't need it, which this was also Jacko at the time, although she had throw house. Throw ghost is what I should say. So that was like the 1.03 patch. This is the Evo patch, I think, that added Dizzy, I believe. Which, by the way, at this point is almost 6 years old now, which, I was thinking about that earlier. Alpha still getting nerfed, still top 5. Still top 5, by the way. Johnny's still getting nerfed, he's still top 5. In fact, he's still like top 1, I think, at this point. I've mentioned a lot of the time that I don't mind it when they simplify games like this. So Leo in this version, he's not good. He's like considered like one of the weaker characters in the game, even though his offense is arguably better than in Strive. It's just like by nature of the game and like mechanics, he's like, if you know how to fight Leo, he's like dead. Like it's so hard for him to win and be stable against you. Now, even with this in mind, they made an entire document on how to fight Leo in every single way possible, because even if you do know how to fight him with mechanics, he has so many things to RPS with that you need to still know this, or he can still rob you. You have to know everything about this. We have gone through 3 charts, by the way, and I'm not finished yet. Right, and again, this character is not considered good. In fact, he basically only gets buffed until Rev 2. So let's talk about Rev 2 changes. Funny enough, a lot of people hated this patch. A lot of people really idolize Rev 2 now, but this patch was really despised on release, and it wasn't because like people were really unhappy with like the way they nerfed or buffed characters, but they just wanted more changes. Like I think most people were waiting for like a Exert 2 rather than a Rev 2, you know what I mean? The wall crumple is one of the most notable things. This is actually something that was kind of a strength to Ram. Ram could actually unblockable loop you by command grabbing you after you would get up from wall crumples. This is when they made 5k 5 frames, 6 frames. Kai, they buffed Kai. This is when Kai was, I believe, top 5. This is when he was like a 5th. This like his new 6H made him really good. Jump H, this is Milia. This is when the Milia death arc became. So Milia's almost always top 5 or top 3 in games, right? She's like the inverse of Soul. Usually when Milia releases, or like when a new game releases, Milia is considered low tier, and as like people develop things with her, she gets considerably stronger. Same with like Zato. Zato is also another great example. Before, it would always give a knockdown. So like every move would lead into Oki. But they changed Jump H to basically become what Exert or Strive Jump H is. Pretty much means that if she used Pin in neutral and she lost it, by the way, Pin was basically an anti-air move. If you tried to like disrespect her moving towards you, she could pin and she'd get a combo or a knockdown. It was extremely powerful. But because she became so dependent on it, it meant that you could burst her knockdowns, and you could get a hard knockdown with Bad Moon, but I don't think any Milia player actually became consistent enough with it. It was too hard. I know LK tried for like a year to make Milia in this version work, but like she was just not good. This is when Zato, I think, got nerfed. I think it was the version before where they nerfed Drill, and Drill is I think why a lot of people hate Zato after that. Potemkin gets literally nothing again. He's still the worst character in the game. He's still considered the worst, but I guess he's still paying for the sins of AC. So at this point, Potemkin has been considered the worst character for 4 years. He has gotten a substantial buff. This is the Chip patch. So this is when Chip became very, very, very broken. Gamma used to be very broken, but also like everyone else was getting nerfed. They nerfed Johnny again. Where the fuck is Alpha? Yeah, she lost health, she lost 5-8. Chip became very strong as, we haven't even talked about Faust yet. Even though you may think that this is kind of like, oh, this is kind of like, you know, it's not that scary. It's just like, he just got new items added, right? This was the worst change of the patch. So much. I will never forgive ArcSys for doing this. What they did was they made it so every time he throws an item, he has an option to get a jackpot item. In fact, there's a ratio on it. On these odds, this is what dictates what item you get. Basically, all the jackpot items are just the same ones, but fucking better. And they benefit him in almost every way. Bomb, Golden Hammer, and meteors are the most cursed one, even though it may seem like, you know, oh, like these changes are so small. This is like this is the pinnacle of ArcSys balancing. I would describe it as silent but deadly. It's either what they don't do or the small things that they do. I haven't even gotten to Eno. Oh my god, Eno in this version was fucking cursed. Here's a common thing with ArcSys balancing in Xrd, and it's something I hope they don't do in Strive. They kind of abandon character. Axel, for example, he never really got buffed. Potemkin never left bottom one, ever. Slayer, even though he's considered weaker, basically still got nothing. Though this spike change is pretty good. And then Bedman. This is when they killed Bedman, which I'm still sad about. Basically, in every way, they nerfed him. The only thing they really gave him was Air Deja Vu, which like was such a bad change. At this point, like Sin was good, but like I don't think he's like top 5. Like at this point, like it's still the Althel era, it's still the Johnny era. But now it's Eno, Faust, and I think Venom. I think those are, oh, and Chip. Chip is fucked up in this version. Probably at this point, it's like Johnny, Chip, Althel, or Eno, Faust, probably. All right, last patch. You guys ready for Rev 2? They changed RC. A lot of people asked this for a long time, kind of hit during RC startup, but the problem is it's so like insignificant due to how small it is. So Soul, they made Soul run faster. This is like a big deal. In fact, a lot of people, I used to sex people with Soul. I remember like all they did was they removed like the dash acceleration on his startup. He didn't run faster, but when he started running, he just instantly started running as fast as he could. I'd say like it changed some matchups like a little bit, but like I used to have people complaining like, oh, he's so broken now because you can't react to 2P wild turn. Oh my god, that was beautiful. So Kai in this point was considered pretty good, but I think at this point he's just like, with these changes, he's kind of just like fallen off a tiny bit. Again, actually at this point we can tell. I put him at like 7. Most of these characters are all comparable for like the kind of slot they fight over. Good contenders for 6. A lot of people always hyped up Milia at this patch. I never bought that she was like top 5, but some people, especially like after like Xrd, like I'd say a lot of the Xrd players have swapped to Strive. A lot of people are really adamant that Milia is like a top 3 character or something. Zato, they're like desperately trying to save Zato, but he's like, they gave him Far S and 6H and 2K into 5D, which should tell you everything about what, like how seriously they want to buff him. Again, Zato is definitely not in the category of high. Definitely, I would say Zato, Milia, and Potemkin, when they nerfed them far enough, they definitely are just like, well, whatever. Almost all of these changes to Potemkin, again, are still like worthless. The only thing that changed is you can do Heat Knuckle into Heat Knuckle. Chip, this is when they killed Chip. Oh yeah, it was Wall Cling Alpha Blade. This made them go the other way, so you couldn't set play them anymore. And then Faust, so even though Faust is broken, they buffed him again. After all that, then at this point they changed a lot of shit about Axel, but like again, like it's just like it was not enough. Oh, they buffed her again? I didn't remember them. Maybe this is the version where she became godlike. This was it. This was the patch. Air dash after 663 special cancelable. So this is when she would do 663 super. So again, this is why I also don't really mind Eno as much in this game. So this super, this was frame 0. So that means if you were not blocking when she did this move, it would hit you after the super flash. Like even if you blocked as like the flash went out, it would still hit you. So she would do 663, air dash over you, and then she'd do this. It's Omega plus is the point. She could left right you with this super, start her offense, high low you, and then every interaction off this she could also just F shiki you or like fuzzy overhead you. Bedman, again, they're still trying to resuscitate him, but they gave him a really shitty 6H as well, but he's gone. Like he's dead. Sin again is like, he's not terrible, but again, like you can see like at this point is when you're going to start seeing why a lot of people hate ArcSys balancing. In fact, this is a direct reason why. You may notice a lot of the time I've talked about characters kind of getting like left behind or like kind of forgotten, but you may notice they've started to buff Elfelt again, right? Notice here, almost all of these changes are a buff, right? It's kind of weird, isn't it? Johnny, again, he gets buffed again. This is actually when I realized I will never understand ArcSys balancing. Answer, at the time, he had some specific good matchups. He was kind of like a footsies base character that would set play you. Even though Answer was considered like one of the weaker characters due to like Blitz beating his mechanic, he was really good against characters who would frequently fight at the ground like Soul or like Kai or like them, because what are they called? 5H loops. So he could essentially do 5H, IAD, get a combo, 5H, like land, 5H, get a combo, air dash. It was really good for him. So what do you think they do in the next patch? They removed it. I don't know why. They nerfed him. I literally do not understand why. It's like one of the greatest mysteries of the world. He was like a bottom 3 character with like a kind of cool niche where like he could kind of contest people, and they nerfed his ass. Like, why? Why would you nerf him? It made no sense. It made absolutely 0 sense. And you know, that's like a fitting end to like talk about this, right? ArcSys is kind of unpredictable with kind of their changes because they're blatantly not balancing around like what would be the best balance. It's about what they think feels right. And you can see that even now in the fact that, remember, last patch, they buffed Leo. Do you guys remember that? We thought Leo had trouble opening people up. This motherfucker is like one of the most stable on offense because he's one of the most plus framed ones in a game where there's no plus frame. That's crazy. Oh yeah, and they buffed Nago and Ram, right? Like those are also great examples.